So, guys, in the last few years, we've seen the gangs in the Gage Park, back of the yards area, like the southwest side of Chicago, turn up on police a lot, man. And usually this is by mistake. There's been times when, they've been blowing at ops and hit one of the cops or something like that, or, mistaking the cops for somebody that they think is trying to creep on the block. We've seen, the Saints do this. There's been, I forget the name of the gang that the guy was in. This was some years ago, man. His name was He-Man. He was well known in Chicago, man. This was like when I was like a teenager, but going all the way back, man. Like these gangs on the southwest side, they've gone at the police. Sometimes when they're on chases, and some police have gotten killed over there, man. And there was one particular incident where one police officer had gotten killed by a member of the Spanish Cobras. And I'm going to do a separate video on this, or at least I'm planning to. And the police had retaliated by telling everybody that the guy that they thought had killed their fellow officer was snitching on them. Like they spread that word amongst his own gang. And he eventually got stabbed. And, the stabbing I don't think was ever solved, but like the police were putting his own homies against him. So we'll see, though, that's seen like in hindsight as a foul incident that they did. And we'll see if, there's any type of retaliation this time against this particular game, because this time we have the Latin Kings, and we had an 18-year-old now who's charged with the murder of the Chicago police officer that was killed several days ago, man. Now, yesterday I was taking the Ashland bus, got on around Division, Milwaukee, over by the Jewel over there, and was going northbound, like towards Fullerton, and the bus stopped at Cortland and turned back around, and several number 9 Ashland buses did this in a row. There was a bunch of people standing out at the Cortland stop, like wondering if there was going to be any number 9 buses that were going all the way to Irving Park like they usually do. And one lady told me that the reason why they were doing this was because they were having the funeral for the police officer that had been killed, and all the police were down there, and so for some reason, like they had to run these buses short. So when a police officer gets killed, man, it's a big deal. All the police are over there at the hospital. They're all showing up to the funeral. And I'm saying in the past, there's been retaliation from the police against a particular gang that has killed one of their fellow officers. Now, critics of that have said, if they do that, they're acting like a gang, retaliating and stuff. And I agree. I mean, that's not something that police are supposed to do. But, there has been get back, so to speak, and the police have more than one way of getting get back, right? I mean, it's not just, killing somebody like another gang would do. They can do what I just mentioned, which is turn your own homies against you. So when you kill a cop, the police can do things, though, in the streets to basically, turn the tables on you, man. So that's a very dangerous thing to do. And plus, if you get booked, you're going into prison now, where you're basically a cat in the dog pound, you know what I'm saying? And I mean, the police can do whatever they want to you in there. And there's very little oversight or repercussions for what goes on behind those walls. I mean, you guys know that. So I'm just saying, there's guys out here that are doing this. I'm not saying that this particular 18-year-old killed this cop on purpose, but that's something you need to think 2, 3, 4, and 5 times about. It's not the same as killing an op. It's not. I mean, this is a whole different ballgame as far as repercussions in your life and, potentially the lives of the people around you, right? So anyways, man, we had an alleged member of the Latin Kings, an 18-year-old. He's been charged in the shooting death of a Chicago police officer in the city's Gage Park neighborhood on the southwest side. This is being reported by Fox. On March 1st, Chicago police were responding to a domestic call of a man chasing a woman with a gun. And a guy named Steven, he's the man accused of gunning down Officer Andres Vasquez Lasso, I think is his last name, around 4:45 p.m. as Steven was being chased by the officer over by 52nd and Spalding across the street from an elementary school. That's Sawyer Elementary School over there. I don't know if any of you guys went over there. Shout out to everybody over there, man. But the officer was 32 years old. He was shot several times. He was taken in extremely critical condition to the hospital where he died. And there was a huge group of cops out there, man. And we remember the last time I reported on a cop dying was Ella French. I think that was, I can't remember the exact neighborhood, if that was back of the yards, West Inglewood. It was like that same general area of the city. Gage Park, West Inglewood, and back of the yards all kind of like converge in one particular spot. So that's the same general area, man. But anyways, there was a big procession of them being taken to the morgue on the west side. And despite his wounds, he was able to return fire, and he shot this guy, Stephen, in the head. Okay, so Stephen was taken to the hospital in critical condition. So, he actually made it after a headshot. And one witness said there were kids outside hanging out at the school playground across the street. And she then heard loud noises and thought that it was fireworks, and saw a man down in a parking lot next to the playground holding his chest and shouting. And another man, which was the cop, lying closer to the playground and not moving. And there were like 12 or more kids at the school that were hiding underneath the playground equipment. And one of the people on the ground said, quote, "Shoot me, shoot me." And he was saying that to another officer. So apparently this guy, Stephen, was telling a second cop to shoot him. At any rate, man, one of the bullets went through one of the nearby houses and went into their bedroom. So on Thursday night, there were vigils. That was last night. And there were vigils on both the south side and the far southwest side. Remember and honor the officer, Vasquez Lasso. Rest in peace to him. So an autopsy classified his death as a homicide due to multiple gunshot wounds. So he was shot multiple times. And police have provided very little information about Stevens, saying only that he had a record of one prior arrest now. So according to records, he was arrested last summer after running from a stolen car that was wanted in a shooting. So he was charged at the time with a misdemeanor count of resisting or obstructing a peace officer, which was dropped months later. So there wasn't enough evidence to charge him with any of the other stuff. The arrest report notes that felony charges were denied by prosecutors, though it doesn't provide further details. And a teenage boy was charged in the shooting, and another man was hit with gun charges, according to police. So a stolen Honda Accord that had been used in the shooting over by 26th and West 23rd Place around 8:10 p.m. on July 28th was the vehicle in question here. So a 27-year-old man suffered 2 gunshot wounds to his left leg. So at any rate, that Honda Accord was over there, and the driver was wearing a mask at the time, so his face wasn't visible. And he was fleeing the scene. And later that night, officers tried to stop that same car near 26th and Whipple, but it took off and led cops and state troopers on a chase. So you guys see how they're getting down with the police, man. I mean, Chicago is like this, man. So the Accord was pulled over by 74th and Parnell, and Stephen at that point took off along with the other suspects. He was found under a porch in a backyard in the same block and taken into custody. 2 loaded handguns were found nearby in the direct path of the offenders from the vehicle. Okay, so that report identified Stephen as a member of the Latin Kings street gang, which is, the deepest Latino gang in the city. But a helicopter was overhead during the arrest, but didn't capture on video Stephen holding any of the guns. So it did capture one of his co-defendants throwing one of the guns on the ground. Now, a 15-year-old boy was charged with felony counts of aggravated battery with a firearm and aggravated unlawful use of a weapon in that situation, as well as a misdemeanor count of criminal trespass to a vehicle. And the other guy, not Stephen, he was 22 years old. He was charged with felony counts of aggravated unlawful use of a weapon and attempting to flee, along with a misdemeanor count of resisting or obstructing a peace officer. So I told you guys, you see how what age they got these guys out here doing this stuff at? People were saying Adam Toledo, was young. I'm telling you, for gangbanging, that's not that young. 13, man, 15. It's common these ages. So the state's attorney's office said in a statement that Stephen was not charged with a felony because the evidence does not support a charge of gun possession. So based on his age and lack of criminal history at that time, they said he was offered an alternative to traditional prosecution, which included 25 hours of independent community service. And the defendant completed the 25 hours, and the case was dismissed on November 17th of 2022. So when the stolen Honda Accord was returned to its rightful owner, there were bullet holes in it. So the officer, Andres Vasquez Lasso, was married, and he had a young daughter. They had just moved into a home in the Marquette Park neighborhood, which is not too far from M Block, which I was just telling you guys about. So one of the mothers of the other police officers said, "We have sons that every day put their life on the line. We know that they leave, but we don't know if they're going to come back." And an officer from the neighborhood Deering Police District drove by as well. He wasn't working and wanted to come by to pay his respects, and the officer joined the force only a little before Chicago police officer Ella French was killed in 2021. And they said stuff like this, it's scary. They said policing is real. So, yeah, man, that Southwest side, I mean, they blow back at police all the time, man. And sometimes they blow first, and so cops get killed and get shot at over there a lot. And it's one of the things that really makes it a job where, okay, when they do that kind of thing, they're putting everybody else at risk. I mean, this is the thing, like when people praise these cop killers and, oh yeah, you killed a cop, you just put in the minds of every cop in Chicago that incident. Okay, so now the next time we're facing the cops, see, a lot of people, they think wrongly, okay, that killing cops is going to make cops less likely to kill them. Okay, what the police say is that the number one reason they're pulling that trigger is fear that you're going to pull a trigger on them. So if you do that, is that going to add or diminish that fear? I mean, come on, man. Like, this is just common sense, bro. Like, people say if we shot back at the police, they wouldn't be so quick to shoot up, bro. The police say the polar opposite. Okay, and you put yourself in that situation. Okay, if you know that somebody's going to shoot you, are you more or less likely to shoot them first? I mean, just ask yourself that simple, basic question. So, anyways, man, rest in peace to the cop, and we'll see what happens, man. But the Latin Kings, got to watch out now, for possible get back from CPD. And I'm not saying CPD is going to do that. I hope they don't act like a gang and do that. I hope they, take the high ground and remain one level above that. But this is a situation where, there's a history of conflict between the CPD and these gangs, and sometimes, sometimes it happens like that. But hopefully they'll keep that under control. Here's your boy Winnie State Report. I'm out.